Hi, this is 100 Films and Other Stuff. At 91 is John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China. Hollywood has been making action movies for a lot longer than people realize. It probably all started with Douglas Fairbanks Sr. over 100 years ago, portraying such great swashbuckling heroes as D'Artagnan, Zorro, Robin Hood, and the Black Pirate. Though it would be remiss of me to not mention the likes of Harold Lloyd and Buster Keaton doing all manner of crazy things in the name of comedy and action, which I feel today's action heroes owe a small debt. I mean, seriously, these guys did some crazy stuff. But from the early 70s to the mid-80s, Hollywood produced a long list of action movies featuring very serious men with big guns, preventing crime and saving the world. Clint Eastwood's Dirty Harry movies and Charles Bronson's Death Wish would introduce us to the vigilante genre, and they would spurn numerous imitations throughout the 70s. These movies were usually set in urban landscapes and were decidedly dark in tone. The genre would reach its apotheosis with Scorsese's Taxi Driver. Of course, not all heroes of the 70s were serious, with this guy capable of keeping things light. But what linked these heroes and anti-heroes was their supreme confidence in their ability to do their job. Their confidence was usually warranted because they were very good at what they did. By the mid-80s, masculinity had been ratcheted up to infinity with Arnie and Sly's big muscles and big guns, killing everybody in sight, and of course succeeding. Rewatching movies such as Rambo 2 and Commando today, it's kind of difficult not to laugh at the inanity and excess of it all. But again, these heroes were supremely confident. Their confidence was perhaps well placed, given how bad some of their enemies shot. Nevertheless, they were more than capable of getting the job done and saving the world. This is perhaps why, in 1986, John Carpenter and Kurt Russell, teaming up for the fourth time, decided to make Big Trouble in Little China, a film whose action hero, Jack Burton, is full of confidence, but despite his confidence, is not particularly good at getting the job done, nor saving the world. In reality, saving the world, or in this case, saving Chinatown, will be ostensibly left up to his sidekick Wang Chi, played by Dennis Dunn. The narrative for Big Trouble in Little China involves Wang and Jack rescuing Wang's green-eyed fiancée Mao Yin from the clutches of an ancient sorcerer, David Lopan. Lopan needs a woman with green eyes to regain his human body to break the no-flesh curse that was put on him over 2,000 years ago. Our heroes will have to literally go under Chinatown to bring her back while encountering goblins, demons, and an assortment of foes led by Lopan's three henchmen, Thunder, Rain, and Lightning. They will also have to negotiate the wonderfully named Hell of the Upside-Down Sinners. Big Trouble in Little China is not to be taken too seriously. I mean, it's an action comedy after all. But like any good movie, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. What makes it such an interesting movie, aside from the kung fu, Chinese sorcery, and witty dialogue, is the way it sets up its main character, Jack Burton. Jack appears from the movie posters, and even at the start of the movie, to be the archetypal action hero. He has big muscles, looks in control, knows what's going on, and what he's doing. But once the adventure begins in earnest, it becomes apparent that Jack isn't quite as good as he thinks he is. Jack is not completely incompetent and does execute some nice moves. His final slaying in particular is pretty cool. He also has some wonderful lines which are delivered with aplomb by Kurt Russell, doing a damn fine John Wayne impression.
Okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
Despite the confident one-liners, Jack is in over his head. Though Jack is not going to let anybody know it.
First time you ever plugged somebody?
Of course not.
Come on!
However, even when his confidence takes a knock, he doesn't take long to bounce back. Jack's complete self-belief in his own ability to overcome any obstacle placed before him, even though he doesn't overcome said obstacles very well, is what makes this film so funny. I have often speculated as to why Jack is so confident, and I think it comes down to two things. He's American, and subconsciously he knows Wang Chi has his back. Big Trouble in Little China excels at mocking the archetypal male action hero. It shows its quasi-hero looking quite silly at times, like when Jack kills Lo Pan on the second attempt, covered in red lipstick. It was pretty inspired filmmaking and was a spur-of-the-moment idea that occurred on set. This emasculation of its hero is reminiscent of some of the screwball comedies by Howard Hawks, John Carpenter's favourite film director.
You spoiled little scatterbrains. My goodness, the man who gets you is going to have a lifetime of misery. Everything's going to be all right. Yes, everything's going to be... What do you want?
Well, who are you?
Who are you?
Well, who are you?
What do you want?
Well, who are you?
I don't know. I'm not quite myself today.
Well, you look perfectly idiotic in those clothes.
These aren't my clothes.
Well, where are your clothes?
I've lost my clothes.
Well, why are you wearing these clothes?
Because I just went gay all of a sudden.
The other example that springs to mind is the last major fight scene where Jack knocks himself out and also nearly gets crushed to death by an ancient soldier he has killed. It's wonderful to watch and completely subverts what the audience expects to see from its supposed hero. Of course, the real hero is Jack's sidekick, Wang Chi. He's very good at fighting, passionately in love with his bride-to-be, and quite knowledgeable regarding Chinatown's supernatural underbelly. He's the antithesis of Jack Burton. Excluding They Call Me Bruce, which to be honest is probably not the best example, Big Trouble in Little China is the only film from Hollywood in the 80s that actually had an Asian male as the hero, albeit indirectly set up. And to top that, he gets his girl too. But it just goes to show how progressive the movie was for its time. And this wasn't lost on the Asian cast, as Dennis Dunn so succinctly explains here.
I don't think there's any problem at all with the film. I think it breaks a lot of new ground for Asians. It's an important film for the Asian community and the portrayal of Asians in a Hollywood film.
In what way do you think it is?
One, that I'm pretty much portrayed as an American. I am Chinese, but I definitely am an American who's very savvy to what's going on on the street, very adaptable, and he's clearly an American. Not talking with a funny accent, not talking some funny pidgin language. I think that's a major breakthrough in American film. I don't think there's been a character like mine ever.
The cast of supporting Asian players are also fantastic and seem to understand their roles in this homage to kung fu films. There's the excellent Victor Wong as Egg Shen, and of course James Hong, who plays the ancient David Lo Pan. Hong is suitably evil and really has fun with the part. He also does some very cool stuff with his mouth that would be enough to frighten any Zen master. At the time of release, Big Trouble in Little China was not well received by certain members of the Asian community. It was also accused by Roger Ebert of being right out of the era of Charlie Chan and Fu Manchu, with no apologies and all the usual stereotypes. I love Roger Ebert's reviews, but I think he completely missed the point and feel of the movie. James Hong's delightfully over-the-top performance as David Lo Pan seems to be based on that old Asian villain, Dr. Fu Manchu, who was played by Boris Karloff and Christopher Lee in Yellowface on many occasions. However, this is done by design, in my opinion. Lo Pan is certainly a stereotype, but Hong's character is so snarky, rude, and excessive that I see him as a parody of all those evil Asian depictions from long ago.
What, you? I don't get this at all. I thought Lo Pan...
Shut up, Mr. Burton. You are not brought upon this world to get it.
But thanks to Hong, Lo Pan has some depth. He's not just evil, he's playful and a man looking for love.
You seem to be one who know the difficulties between men and women, how seldom it works out. Yet we all keep trying like fools.
But even if Lo Pan isn't your cup of tea, there's still Wang Chi, kicking ass, saving Jack on many occasions, and getting Yao Min back, which is the impetus for the entire story. There's also Egg Shen, leading them all into battle for the last time. My point is that there's a variety of Asian Americans pitted against each other. Some of them are good, and some of them are bad. When Big Trouble in Little China was released, there was much excitement amongst Asian American actors because I thought it was the beginning of greater opportunities for Asian Americans to tell their stories. But alas, Big Trouble in Little China, despite becoming a cult classic, didn't fare well at the box office. And this on the back of the panning of Michael Cimino's The Year of the Dragon and the quite terrible Shanghai Surprise meant that Hollywood would shelve anything related to Asia and Asian Americans for a long time, unless of course it had Jackie Chan in it. There was one notable exception in the 90s, Wayne Wang's excellent The Joy Luck Club. Here's James Hong in 2015.
I started out to say, it still didn't open the field wide enough for the Asian Americans. In a way, after that movie, we still just took minor roles, not principal roles of people that are in the principal walk of life in America, like doctors, scientists, and so forth. We still were just the cliche Chinaman in the movies for a long time. And now it's starting to come up. And I hope you people will write the studios or speak up and open up the field more for the Asian Americans, correct?
Hong wasn't to know that things were going to change quite dramatically in Hollywood for Asian representation in the subsequent years. Since 2018, there has been several movies covering a variety of stories and characters featuring Asian Americans, which have garnered critical and financial success. Everything Everywhere All at Once and The Farewell being two personal favourites. Now, at long last in 2023, the future does appear brighter for Asian American representation in Hollywood.
Why is that better? Chinese people have saying, when people get cancer, they die.
And it definitely took too long. But that is why Big Trouble in Little China is so significant. The film would have certainly been very different without the involvement of Kurt Russell and John Carpenter. Russell got the premise of the movie and was more than happy to make a fool of himself, which allowed the rest of the cast and the movie to be so much better. But ultimately, a lot of the praise for Big Trouble in Little China needs to land with Carpenter. Without Carpenter's love and knowledge of kung fu movies and his desire to pay homage to the genre, it's hard to imagine what would have become of Big Trouble in Little China. Carpenter is a fascinating director because he has made some great films that were universally loved by critics and audiences at the time of release. And then he's made some excellent movies that were panned and failed at the box office. They Live, The Thing, and Big Trouble have become cult classics that now are viewed very differently compared to when they were first released. The Thing, in particular, is generally acknowledged as a sci-fi horror masterpiece these days. The man has been ahead of his time not once, but on 3 occasions. Big Trouble in Little China is funny, action-packed, and so much fun to watch. It might not be a masterpiece in the classic sense of the word, but it's a film I find so easy to watch, and I return to it over and over again. And that is not a bad thing.